So, what is going on, guys? This is Ryan here.
And this is Other Ryan here.
And today we're actually going to be talking about something really interesting, which lies primarily in one of the minigames in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, and also in the images in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and 1.
Yes, now this takes a keen observer to notice these. As we know, in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2, there were posters on the wall drawn by children, and within these posters are a recurring child that we see throughout all the pizzerias.
Yeah, and he seems to wear some distinctive clothes, them being a kind of green jumper or shirt, and kind of like blue jeans, I suppose you could say.
Yes,
Yeah.
and what do we see in Five Nights at Freddy's 3 Mangle's Quest? The same guy, a green shirt and blue jeans.
And what's more interesting is that kind of the images kind of depict his growth almost, kind of as he's grown older, isn't it? They all kind of perfectly relate. I mean, let's actually go through the images now one by one and analyze them.
So, in the first pizzeria, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, in 1987, we can see the child with Mangle in Kids Cove. You can see this in the bottom left-hand corner.
Yes, and you can also see it in the office also on the right wall, but it's quite distorted. The one in Kids Cove is much more clearer to see. Now, what's more interesting is what is actually included within this image.
Yes, and that would be Mangle's head, with the child holding up what appears to be his eye.
Yeah, and I think a really interesting link between the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 minigame and also this kind of image here is the fact that all we can actually see from the Mangle is her head. And when we actually start the minigame in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, we begin as the head also, and it seems to incorporate the same guy, as I've said, with the green shirt and blue jeans, so it seems like there's definitely some kind of connection here, doesn't there? It seems almost too appropriate. I mean, in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, there was actually no Mangle, and when we're just seeing the head, it's almost like he's, I don't know, how would you explain it? It's almost like he's kind of disassembled the Mangle and almost took the Mangle as a relic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like a trophy almost, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, with the head kind of showing the most, you know, the purged part, the most important part of everything, because the kid looks very happy that he's actually dismembered the Mangle, doesn't he?
Yeah, very sinister.
Yeah, it's probably not something the child should be really smiling about.
Yeah, definitely not.
Maybe 30 years on he learned his lesson.
Yeah. So in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, we could see the poster again.
Yeah.
I believe this one is in the West Hall.
There's also one in your office, I think.
Oh, is there? Oh.
I believe the one to be in your office also, yeah. So there's two of those images too, and I think most people have actually come to the conclusion that Five Nights at Freddy's 1 was based in 1993, wasn't it?
Yes, I do believe so, yeah.
So that would be either 6 or 7 years old, depending on what part of 1993 you're actually in the pizzeria. Now, in this image, it seems to show the same child, except there's a slightly different series of events occurring. This child now seems to have longer hair, and of course he's wearing the same unique clothing, and he's next to a prize, and it seems to be blasting open with what appears to be Bonnie, really fixated on the child, almost looking startled, kind of staring at the child. And I think this image is actually really interesting.
Yes, that Bonnie that we're looking at looks very similar to Springtrap. As we see Springtrap, it has very wide black eyes with just little pupils inside. And you can see on this Bonnie, it's got kind of the same features almost.
Yeah, another interesting thing I actually wanted to pick up on when I first saw this image was the kind of startled appearance the animatronic appears to have. I mean, this is what makes me think that this child has some kind of deeper connection. If you think back to Five Nights at Freddy's 2, especially in the Give Gifts and Give Life minigame, you'll know that the puppet gives life to these 4 dead children. They become the animatronics almost. Now, what about if that actually took place in the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 pizzeria? The child was actually then, or could I say the child inside the animatronic was then put inside of a parcel, and the child kind of blasts open within this animatronic state, and then he looks at the child with kind of like some kind of link, almost like he knows this child, and that's why the startledness is kind of coming from it and why he's so fixated on this happy child. So what I actually think this could mean is maybe that the animatronic bursting out of the gift prize could have previously known this child.
Ah, quite possibly, yes. I mean, this, like you said, this child has a strong connection with the establishment.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know what precisely yet, but there is some deeper meaning behind this guy that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, there definitely is. So now we're going to move on to Five Nights at Freddy's 3. And more in particular, one of the minigames. And this minigame is actually known as Mangle's Quest. Now, when we actually start this minigame, we only begin as Mangle's head, which is why I was saying earlier about the link between the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 image showing just Mangle's head and the child, and kind of the beginning of this minigame. As I said, we start as Mangle's head and we have to kind of try and rebuild ourselves. Different parts of the Mangle are actually on different areas of what appears to be some kind of shelving. Now, as we actually progress from one side of the screen to the other, we actually see this same guy of what it appears to be, but actually 30 years on in kind of like a grown adult state, wearing the same kind of clothing colour.
Yes, he appears to be balding again, as we can see in like Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which would suggest that he has gone older.
Yeah.
But basically the aim of this game is obviously to not get caught by this guy.
Yeah.
For a split second, for a split frame, you could see you're dismembered if you get caught by this person.
Yeah, completely dismantled again, so it's almost like he catches you and takes you apart. But I think what's quite interesting about this last minigame is how he looks very startled, you know, with the almost like the expressive white dots coming from his head. It kind of shows like a cause for concern, doesn't it?
Yes, and this links back to Five Nights at Freddy's 3 Night 5. As we go into the back room, we can see the purple guy with the same kind of white expressive lines that we see. And from the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 Night 5 ending, we know that the purple guy is actually fearing and in panic. That's what these expressive lines are coming from.
Yeah, so we can kind of link that. Maybe this guy is also in a kind of, as I said, a panicky state also.
Yes, definitely.
Which actually leads back to the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 image again. I mean, when we look at the mangle in this image, it looks very kind of relaxed, I suppose you could say. It's not doing a whole lot. You just see the head. The child's clearly torn out the eye, but there's not really much going on from the mangle side. He doesn't look sinister or anything, so maybe the mangle was in some, maybe like a relaxed state almost, and then after the kid kind of mangled this character, note the name, maybe it came back to life 30 years later, and he had it in maybe some kind of special room, and obviously the thought of it coming back to life, becoming more sinister and kind of piecing itself together maybe startled this guy.
Yeah, I can imagine. That would be very scary.
Yeah, of course it would. And I think, yeah, that just makes us think that there is some kind of reoccurring chain with this one character appearing throughout the three Five Nights at Freddy's 3 games. And I think we have to think, what might this guy represent?
Yeah, there are many possible suggestions, but obviously this guy has grown a love for the establishment. So obviously, I don't think he has any harm intended on the place. I think that maybe, I don't know, maybe he actually bought Mangle at some kind of auction, because they were discontinued, weren't they, after Five Nights at Freddy's 2? So maybe this guy actually took Mangle in.
Now, on an interesting side note, what I actually want to talk about is what happens in one of the minigames. Now, this might be a very speculative point, but I actually might think that the phone dude is somehow linked to this guy. Now, in Night 2, of course, we know that the phone guy seems to quickly vanish from wherever he is talking. And it is actually in Night 2 when Mangle's quest becomes available. So, could the startled manner of him almost be like the Mangle has now been reborn? Because we don't actually know of the Mangle's presence also. He's not listed, or should I say, excuse me, she is not listed as a phantom character, so she must be real. Could she be rebuilding herself right next to the phone dude, and could he be startled and also almost kind of like start panicking and running?
Oh god.
So could this be a representation of what happens and why the phone dude actually disappears?
Quite possibly. I mean, that, like you said, that is very speculative, but it's still a point none the wiser.
Yeah, I mean, the fact as well we can actually play this minigame in Night 2, it kind of links the two a little bit together, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, guys, I think that's about everything we can perceive from this series of events. Comment down below what you think. Do you think this guy is actually the same character reoccurring throughout the various pizzerias? And if so, what do you actually think this guy might represent? So yeah, guys, hopefully you did enjoy the video. Be sure to like and also subscribe if you're new around here for a mixture of video content. So thanks very much for watching the video, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
Goodbye, guys.
Want to see even more content from us?
Consider liking and subscribing to ensure you'll see all content in the foreseeable future.
And hey, why not check out our past 2 videos?